Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Daily with Jay and Clay. We are glad you made it. We have a great topic to share with you. Nice reminder of how things work, the left and the right limits. And I'm not going to spoil it because, Clay likes to have good ideas. So it's Clay's idea to have this conversation with you today. So I'm going to let Clay run with what we're going to be talking about. Clay, go for it.
Yeah, so today we're talking about, is VA disability easy or hard? I took a poll, Jason. All right. I'm going to show
No
you
kidding.
the results of the poll, and it pretty much says there's 1.2 thousand votes, and this was less than 24 hours. Okay. So I would expect probably about 3,000 votes in total. And the yes, it's hard, nope, it's easy. I'm actually on Veterans Daily's YouTube channel right now, not mine. But the results are about 92% say yes, it's hard. Actually, 87. There we go. I had to vote. 87% are saying it's hard, and only 13% are saying it's easy. And this is something that I want to talk about. And we're kind of not holistically. We'll cover that at the end. I think it's the right thing to do to kind of go block by block and talk about, is it easy or is it hard? So I'm going to kick this to you, Jason, starting with filing that VA disability claim. Easy or hard?
I have a chicken that's getting ready to lay an egg. So that's exciting. So it's going to probably come back. Well, you'll hear it. So first of all, I think that it's very interesting that the number is that high for hard, not for the initial reasons that you might think, because I think overall, U.S. population-wise of veterans, yes, I would expect that. But this is viewers of these videos, and look, these people are watching not just one video; they're watching yours, mine, our collective, other people's, and getting information of which we're trying to shine a light on the things you need to do. Sure, climbing a ladder overweight is hard, but you can do it because you know that you grab a rung and you go da 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 da. Right? If you didn't know you had to grab the rungs and you had to just do it with your feet, right, without your hands, then it would be really hard. So we're teaching people how to climb the ladder, right? And so I would have thought that that number would have been lower. And then my response was going to be, well, it's lower because these are the educated ones, right? So all that to say is that, damn it, Clay, you need to do a better job of educating people.
I'm trying.
Okay. That's what I'm taking from it. And look, it's our work, right? So here we go. So is it hard to file a claim? No, it's not hard to file a claim. It's hard to file a successful claim, right? Because anybody could file a claim. You could just go on to va.gov, push a few buttons, and off it goes, and file no evidence with it. You filed a claim, right? But it's not successful. So you got to back it up, and you got to say, look, it's not about filing a claim. It's about filing an appropriate claim with the appropriate evidence. It's always evidence, right? You get out of your mind documents or paperwork that you're filing with. No, it's evidence that supports what you are saying. I have a condition that I'm saying is due to or manifested during my time in service, and here's all of my evidence that supports that statement, right? So before I go further, I want to kick it to you and just kind of get your initial thoughts, because I'm still surprised that the number's as high as it is, given the people who are answering that question.
Yeah, maybe it's an indication that we do suck, Jason. Who knows? But I posted that poll last night, and then this morning I woke up, and when I saw how high it was, I was like, man, I was also surprised. I was thinking like 50-50, but I think you brought in some good perspective of, these are people who are on YouTube who are watching CivDiv and Veterans Info Tap and CC and the 50 other creators, right? The lawyer channels and all that stuff. And there are some good information on there. But as far as filing a claim, I think the VA, not that they do everything good, but this they got right. The ability to log on to va.gov and file a claim, I can do that probably in about 5-6 minutes without evidence, no anything. The only thing I wish the VA would have done, and this is going to be super millennial, super Gen Zer here, is through the VA app on the phone. If you can file a claim through the app, I would be fully on board with that. But I do think filing a claim is easy. I think filing an evidence-based claim is where it gets difficult, right? The VA has the fully developed claim, which is the big three: the in-service event, the current diagnosis, and the Nexus. I like to say the evidence-based claim, because the Nexus and the medical opinion and DBQ are not required to submit that. And to be honest with you, the VA is probably going to schedule an unwarranted CMP exam anyways. And so I'm a fan of evidence-based, which is the in-service event and the current diagnosis. Something that I like to call the picture-perfect claim. If I was to submit a picture-perfect claim, I would have my service treatment records, which knocks out about 90% of all veterans, right? Who has their service treatment records. But if you have those, I would get the evidence from service, whether it's medical or evidence other than medical, get my current diagnosis, my current treatment plan, physical therapy, medications, whatever, and then submit that with my claim. I think that's when you cross into, okay, is it difficult? I'm still going to say no. But at the same time, we live, breathe, and eat this stuff every day. I mean, we're cranking out videos. I'm constantly saying the big three. So I think it's easy for me. For a veteran who doesn't know, I could see this being extremely complicated process. Those are my initial thoughts, because it depends on where you're at. You know what I'm saying? But I'll kick it back to you, Jason.
It's a good point, and we can get a little, I guess, a little bit in the blinders on thing, and because this is our wheelhouse, and I'm going to just say, especially me, with the fact that my past decade professionally and YouTube wise has just all been this. So every single day is Veterans Day. Every single day is, about this. And I know that you have dedicated the last over 2 years to really pushing out information. So I get it. I guess, yes, through the eyes of somebody new to the claims process, or somebody jaded from the VA process because you didn't even know where to start, and then you're hitting the roadblocks, and then look, it gets harder when you screw up at the beginning, and then you have to undo it with higher level reviews and supplementals, and then the stuff you provided is now working against you, and now you're trying to overcome that, and you got to push it to the board. That it can be a very, very almost disabling process. I mean, you almost freeze in some cases. So I get it. And I think you bring up a good point, like I said. So back to, is it easy? Yes. But now I'm going to reframe it a little bit with, it's the how do you eat an elephant, right? It's one bite at a time. You need to just go, okay, left foot, right foot, and just kind of walk through it. And have your kind of roadmap to success to follow. I know that you have a great, we'll call it a roadmap. I think you call it something different, but you do have a kind of a process that you like to talk about. I'm a big fan of ordering your records, SF 180, standard form 180. I always think of it like I'm looking backwards, right, at 180. So looking backwards, grab my records, get that, right? It's better to start that way, because you can find things you can build from, instead of going, okay, I have these conditions, how can I go back and tie those in? Work with what's easily nexused first to create a list. I'm not saying ignore the things that you're trying to trace back, but anything you have in your file, whether you're talking about signs or symptoms, this bothered me, that bothered me, and it's a sign or symptom of a bigger condition, those are all little hooks in for a nexus. A nexus does not mean you had to have been diagnosed when you were in service. A nexus does not mean that it has to be that definitive, okay? You need anything that points back to, okay, you first started kind of complaining about that, right? During your time in service. They're looking for a link between your condition and your time in service. And that's where Nexus Letter comes in, right? A Nexus Letter is really just trying to help you establish a nexus. And, it's just an important piece of that pie. And I think that maybe what we need to do, because I'm like thinking forward so far now, is maybe what we need to do is create a written down, here's the roadmap. Maybe you've already done it. I mean, I had it in my professional job. That's still there. But maybe think through like, hey, here's the roadmap on what to do. The problem is for folks, and I'm going to kick it back to you, is that although a lot of the key components of that roadmap would be, that is going to happen. There's going to be little offshoots for everybody because it's just so nuanced and so everybody's story is different. And it's like, if you had to write down like a code for it, it'd be, if this equals this, then this has to happen. If this equals this, then this needs to happen. And it would have 50 different shoots off of every single thing. So I think that in a weird way, almost subconsciously, I haven't really pushed out a specific thing to follow because I would need to know your situation to give you that specific thing to follow beyond the basics, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. It'd be like an if and then statement, right? If this happened, then do that. The issue with the roadmap, and you've just tasked me this week. That's the only thing I'm going to think about is how to create that roadmap now. But every single veteran situation is extremely unique. I can file GERD. You can file GERD. We were both in the Marine Corps. We had the same MOS. Our evidence is going to be completely different, nowhere near the same, and uncomparable. So that way, if you get service connected and I get denied, I'll be like, well, Jason got connected. Why didn't I? You can't look at it like that because the evidence is extremely unique. And there's really that if and then statement is going to, now that's all I'm going to think about, Jason. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'll give you an update next week.
Yeah. Enjoy. I'll be thinking about you doing it.
Okay. As long as you think about me throughout the week, that'll make me happy, right?
Okay, done.
I do want to transition to CMP exams. Is in just a blanket statement. We can kind of take this wherever, but are CMP exams easy or hard? What are your thoughts, Jason?
I think that, and now I'm going back to the first time that I got scheduled for one, right? The unknown. So anytime there's the unknown, it's hard. It's difficult. You don't know what to expect. It's scary, right? You're worried. You hear a horror story. So I'm going to go with it's hard when you're not aware, right? After you've done a couple, you're like, when is this thing going to happen? Let's go, right? I think that, and again, look, this is why we do these channels that we do. This is why you, Clay, always talk about being the educated veteran going through this process. I'll tell you what, that the education, the understanding, the hearing a few stories, the what to expect aspect of anything is going to help alleviate the stress a little bit, right? The fact that they call it an exam, right? And I get it. It's you go to a doctor's exam, you get a physical exam, all of those things. But the word exam itself creates a tension and stress in people. Oh my God, I'm going to be, and I'm filing for something. I'm going to get a quiz. I'm going to, I can't bring in any notes. I got to, and it's not, I don't know. It's not as bad as some people make it seem out to be. I mean, you can get a crappy CMP examiner. I get it. But I mean, I think that, and look, I'm trying to be careful here. Some people will say, look, here is the absolute worst case scenario, and that's what you got to expect. They got cameras outside their buildings. They see you walking, and they know that you're the one who's coming in for the CNP exam, and they saw that you tied your shoe outside the vehicle, and when you came in, you sat down and you didn't even squeal. Oh, you don't have a back problem, so you better come in and, so then you got people that are getting out of their cars at CNP exams going, okay, I can't. Okay, they're watching me already, and that's just weird to me. It's It's not, and that all that does is create anxiety and stress for everybody. And I don't think that it's that. You can go in, you can be nice to the people, you can be cordial, right? I mean, I was, and I never had an issue, right? All the issues that I had, and I can point to as a result of my C&P exam, in fact, because I effed it up in the C&P exam, that was me. I'm the one who screwed it up. I said the wrong thing. I didn't expand enough. I didn't give them the signs and symptoms that correlated with the schedule of ratings. My bad, right? I didn't know. I found out later. Then I had to undo it, and that was a pain. But it was because I was uneducated in the process. Now, if I was educated in the process, easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the C&P examiner that screwed me over, in my opinion, for my own personal situation, right? Again, super nuanced, Clay. Everybody has a different story. Every C&P examiner is different. The half of mine were done by the VA, and the other half were done through QTC. And I never had an issue with any of them where I disagreed. Even the ones, again, that I disagreed with, I could go back in my mind and go, okay, well, really, I messed that up, for one. And two, I felt, and this is where we get wrapped around the axle, I felt like they screwed me over, and thus I got a lower rating. That sucks. But then I read the schedule of ratings like, no, I don't want a higher rating. This is it. This is just the way the schedule of ratings is written. Nobody can do anything about that. I mean, I can make my condition could get worse, sure. But I'm already, it's like somebody who goes in, Clay, and says, I'm pissed. My tinnitus pisses me off so much. It sucks so bad. And they gave me 10%. Those bastards.
I've seen that.
They suck. They totally downgraded me and gave me a shitty 10%. Screw the VA. Well, you and I know that's all you can get. They gave you the maximum. Well, I mean, it's the only rating, but you get the point, right? So we get in our own minds that we're getting screwed over, and it's like, no, that's the way. Work with Congress to get them to get the VA to change what the rating schedules are. I mean, that's the only workaround on that. So anyway, that was my little soapbox. Now that I'm trying to remember what I even said, I'll kick it back to you, Clay.
Yeah, so I actually want to break down what you said because I think
I hope you remembered it.
I do. You had said something that I think, and I'm going to say something I know is going to piss people off. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry, everyone. Blame me. But Jason, you had said something that, hey, you were upset about a rating that you gave or that the VA awarded you. Maybe you were not service connected, whatever that situation is, and you were mad at the examiner. But then you said when you look back at it, really, it was you, right? And one thing I do want to point out, and I see this all the time in veterans, is a lack of accountability from the veterans side. Is there accountability on the VA side? Absolutely. I'm not going to fight for the VA in that. They suck. Okay. That's the fact. Is there accountability on the C&P examiner side? There's supposed to be, but there's a lack of because the whole VA contracting. I don't want to get into that on this one. Is there accountability on the veteran side? There's supposed to be, right? There absolutely is supposed to be. And I think that gets down to are C&P exams easy or hard? You know, in order to answer that, I would ask a counter question and say, well, what evidence did you submit with your claim? Because that right there determines if it's easy or if it's hard. And if you have evidence, even if the C&P examiner says no service connection or 0% or 10% or whatever, you have the evidence to bring with you in a higher level review. That's the purpose of the HLR. The HLR will only work. It will only work if you have the evidence. And by evidence, I don't mean what you feel is evidence. I mean the big three. So if you have the evidence, especially the in-service event and the current diagnosis, that's good. That makes the exam easy. What happens is when you don't have the evidence, now you're backtracking and you put in a claim for migraines and there's absolutely zero evidence from service that you have migraines. you maybe submitted a migraine secondary to tinnitus. There's still no evidence for your migraines and your tinnitus. You're just going off of some article that you found on YouTube, right? Don't do, by the way. You submit that claim, all of a sudden you're denied, and you're like, C&P exam sucks, the VA sucks. But that's it. You did everything perfectly. And my message to veterans is just, hey, just C&P examiners do suck. The VA does suck. Okay, got it. But is there an ability, is there a way that veterans could be accountable and responsible for the evidence they submit with that claim? That's going to make your life a lot easier. If you submit evidence, is the VA going to deny you? They could, and it does happen, but that's why we have the appeal process and the higher level review. Is it right? No, it's not. But veterans can always lean back on evidence. You can't lean on nothing. And so
right.
I know a lot of people are going to get mad at that, but I think as a community as a whole, the entire veteran culture, if we just take responsibility for our claims and really look at evidence as in the big three, I think we will see an increase overall across the community. That's just my 2 cents on that one. I hope everyone can breathe after that one. But yeah, are C&P exams easy or hard? I think they can be both. I think if the veteran doesn't know, then they solely rely on the examiner. If a veteran doesn't know anything and they have a solid examiner, the examiner can take care of them in that instance. And I've seen it. It happened to me, actually. My very first claim, I had zero clue what was happening, and the examiner took care of me. Flip that around, okay? If the veteran knows nothing and the C&P examiner is not good, okay, that's going to be a bad day. If not 0%, then probably not service connected, okay? And then you can reverse those roles, right? If the veteran knows everything, when I say everything, I mean the veteran knows their claims and the C&P examiner knows nothing, it's still going to be good because you have that evidence. You might have to do an HLR, which absolutely totally sucks. I get that, but it's an option, okay? I had to do a higher level review to get my 0 up to 50 because I had the evidence. And so it just depends on what do you know? How prepared are you, not just for that exam, but every single disability you are submitting. What you're asking, you're saying, hey, United States of America, pay me for the rest of my life. That's a big deal. So you better submit some evidence with that. Over the span of your lifetime, let's take 10%, which is like $171, okay? I'm going to get out my calculator right here. So $171 times 12, that's 1 year. That's $2,000, and that's $2,052, right? Times that by 20 years, that's $41,000 just for 10%. You're saying, hey, United States, give me $21,000 for 20 years, right? It's a big ask. So I think veterans could submit some evidence with that. That's all. I'll kind of get off that horse, Jason. But does that spark any thoughts on your is C&P exams easy or hard?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, so I have chickens. For those that don't know, the rooster's name's Stan, and I have 3 hens. This is what it sounds like when they're having eggs. Look, my studio's in my little shop area. On the other side is a small chicken coop. So that's what that is. Eventually it'll stop, and so here we go. Whatever. It's entertaining. So I apologize. Let's jump into it. Here's what the big deal is. If you prepare, if you are educated, the C&P exam's not that difficult. What you need to do, the 2 things, is 1, read your schedule of ratings for your specific condition. You should have done that if you've watched our videos, even before you filed your claim, but let's pretend you didn't. Read it now. Very important. Treat this like it is a multi-million-dollar deal and invest a little bit of time, because it really could be a multi-million-dollar deal. You're talking about a tremendous amount of money. I mean, if you're talking about, let's say if you're 100%, you did the math on a 10%. If you're 100%, call it 4,000, call it 50,000 a year in 10 years, that's 500, that's over 500, that's 600 million or 600,000. So 20 years is now $1.2 million tax-free. Gross that up. Now you're close to 2 million. You got your other benefits that come with that are going to pay out more. You have all of your Chapter 35, your Champ VA, all of that. This is a big deal. Invest a little bit of time. So read the schedule of ratings regarding your condition. Understand it. Print it out. Write it down. Take it with you to the C&P exam. There's nothing wrong with bringing notes about your condition. This is a big deal that's going to affect you, your family, for the rest of your life. The second thing you should do, what I would suggest, is print out the DBQ, disability questionnaire, for your specific ailment. Okay. If it's GERD, you're going to go to your digestive systems one, and it'll be in there somewhere. It'll have things about GERD. If it's migraines, there's a migraine one for neurological stuff, and there'll be migraine questions. Read through it. What the VA is doing here is essentially they're going to have an examiner, a C&P examiner, complete a DBQ regarding you and your condition. What they're trying to figure out here is where you're going to fall on the rating schedule. Well, guess what? You read the rating schedule. So now you know the answers that need to go in there need to come from that rating schedule, not over here. I mean, you can add that other stuff in, but you want to make sure that you're dialed in to that rating schedule, because the VA is then going to utilize the examiner's report to weigh against the schedule of ratings to decipher where you fall as far as a rating is concerned. So if you do those two things, you read the rating schedule for your condition, figure out which rating you should be at based on the signs and symptoms. You know you better than anybody. Read that. Secondly, do that DBQ question so you can understand what kind of questions you're going to be asked roundaboutly. Some of them are exact, some of them are a little bit different, but it's going to give you this sense of preparedness. You're going to be ready, okay? You're going to go in and you're going to feel comfortable having that conversation. And if you want to take a little pressure off, let the examiner know when you get in there. They're going to be like, so how are you today? I'm good. Okay, well, let's get into that. Okay, great. I did bring some notes because, this is really important to me. I just want to make sure I get everything across to you appropriately. Oh, yeah, whatever. They don't care, okay? But for you to feel like you're not being weird looking at notes, say something like that. Again, it's anything to help take the pressure off of you in that environment. Now I got quiet chickens. Back to you, Clay.
Yeah. Total offshoots. Have you ever played Zelda, The Legend of Zelda? Ocarina of Time?
Look, I'm old, man. I played it when it was on Nintendo back in the day.
Okay, so I have a Nintendo 64 at the house, and I still have the original, but there's a level in there where there's a bunch of chickens, and you have to put them in the coop, and they sounded exactly like that. Background noise is exactly what it is.
That's it.
If you understand what I'm saying in the comments, let me know below so I don't feel alone, like that I'm the only nerd here.
It's pretty much just you, Clay.
Yeah, it's been like that my whole life. It's okay.
Yeah.
I like how you framed bringing notes to the examiner and just being non-combative is the word I would use. When you walk into that examiner's office, if you have notes, if you have statements, if you even have a completed DBQ from your physician or your referred care, where that looks like, bring that in, but don't be combative, saying, hey, I know you suck. Here's I did your job for you. Definitely take a breath. But I like how you framed it. Exactly like that is what I'm going to start recommending as well. So thank you for that, Jason. Now, transferring into denials. Are denials easy or hard? I'll start this one off, Jason. I think denials are objectively difficult. I think that's where we get into, it doesn't matter how prepared you are or how much you know. If I am fighting a denial for myself, and I have a few denials, and so I'm just thinking of what I've been denied. If I went and fought them myself, would it be difficult? Absolutely. It would be it would be difficult. I have a stutter. You're gonna have to get over it. Okay. It's been like that my whole life too. But first, you have to figure out why you were denied. Was it the in-service event? If it's the in-service event, meaning you have no evidence from service, that is going to be off the bat the hardest denial to combat. 1,000%. It can be done. It's just really, really difficult. The second is a current diagnosis. That's the easy one. If you don't have a current diagnosis, well, what do? You go get diagnosed, right? Whether that's private, that would be a little faster, or through the VA. Through the VA, getting a formal diagnostic code, which will come in an ICD code. The VA healthcare system use ICD codes as well, but they also use SCTs, which are treatment codes. For VA rating purposes, being treated for something is a diagnosis, okay? So in-service event, difficult. Current diagnosis, easy. In the Nexus, I would actually say is difficult. If you are lacking the Nexus, meaning you have the in-service event and you have the current diagnosis, but you don't have the Nexus, it's difficult because now a C&P examiner was unable to come up with an at least as likely. We're not in a courtroom. It's not, without a shadow of a doubt. It is, hey, this might have came from that. There's a 50% chance it came from this. There's a 50% chance it didn't come from that. The VA is going to service connect that. That's at least as likely as not 50-50. And so what happened when you lack the Nexus is the examiner could not say 50-50 service connected. Okay, well, now you need to figure out, well, why did they say that? And this is when it gets difficult because now you're looking at a C&P examiner's rationale. Who's a medical professional, whether that's an NP, a PA, an MD, whatever that looks like. You're going to have to combat that rationale. One of the most difficult rationales to combat is when a C&P examiner says it came from this, but they don't have the evidence to back up that finding, okay? So now what do you have to do? And this is where the sucky part is one of two options. One, go get a private Nexus letter and a private DBQ, which costs money, which sucks, okay? And that's not a guaranteed slam dunk. Or you can do both, or go find an accredited attorney to fight that in appeals. And both of those options are like pick your poison, and denials are just, I would say they're objectively difficult outside of you weren't diagnosed, go get the diagnosis, submit the claim. If you're missing that in-service events, you are fighting a losing battle in my opinion, right? Jason, if you're ready, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's denials and then there's you disagree with the VA. And I like to talk about disagreeing with the VA's decision because sometimes they award you service connection, but you disagree with the rating. So you can kind of lump all that together in disagreements. So on a denial aspect, oftentimes, the lion's share of the time, it's going to be Nexus. I mean, that's usually what it is. Followed by diagnosis. But most of the time, it's the Nexus aspect. Now, a diagnosis, or a denial, rather. A denial is difficult. And what that tells me usually is you kind of cut some corners when you were filing your claim. Okay? Don't do that. This is why we consistently preach, take the time to develop your claim, get all of your evidence in there, button it up, okay, before you file it. Put in your intent to file, buy yourself some time, take the pressure off. You know that you've preserved an effective date. You're not going to lose any money. But people get antsy. People are like, I want this decision yesterday and I want to get some money, right? So you got to fight that. You got to fight that urge to just file it. Do everything you can to really develop the Nexus. And I know this isn't a Nexus video, but I'm going to run through it real quick. The fast version of you have nothing in your medical records at all. Zero. Not a mention of a sign or symptom or anything. And, oh, by the way, your condition, Stan likes it.
Stan related.
Yeah, exactly. So the condition is not a presumptive. So that's not, because there's, again, so much nuance. So now you need to provide a Nexus. It's a requirement. You have to do this, but you have nothing in your medical record. Well, what do? Well, you have to write a statement yourself explaining essentially why you don't have anything in your medical records, but it did manifest or as a result of your time in service in some way, some shape, somehow. right? So you need to describe that in your letter. You need to find people that maybe you served with or knew you during the time that you served at least, who could attest to knowing that, oh yeah, you've always, always seen you with hands full of Motrin, for your migraines. We'll just use migraines. I used to use GERD all the time, but now GERD sucks. So I'm not going to talk about GERD anymore. So, yeah, you're always taking Motrin because you always have a headache, migraine. Migraines are just constantly going on. And yeah, I've just always known you that way. So they're going to write you statements attesting to that. Now, you could stop there with that aspect. But I'm kind of an overkill guy to really, the more evidence in your favor, especially when you don't have anything in your service records, probably the better. The way that the VA is going to look at this is if you join the military without any waivers medically, right? You're a blank slate. You're good. There's nothing wrong with you. You were 1,000% good before you joined. So you don't really need to talk about the before I didn't have anything because they've already done that through MEPS. However, I'm a fan of if you have a brother, a sister, a mother, a father, somebody who can go, yeah, you never had migraines growing up. And it wasn't until you came home that one leave where all of a sudden you sat down at the dinner table with a thing full of Motrin. And I was like, what the heck? Oh, I get migraines all the time. And then they can write you a letter too. It's just additional lay evidence that's now it's kind of shining on the before. Yep, absolutely not. During, yes. And then you're going to have to follow it up. Now that's lay evidence, right? Lay evidence, people that knew you, statements from you, whatever. But now you got to go to the medical evidence side, which is Clay's favorite side, and go get a Nexus letter from a medical professional, right? Ideally your doctor, right? Would be good, not your veterinarian. So go to your doctor and have them write you a Nexus letter stating that, again, like you had stated, it's at least likely as not, right? The threshold is 50-50. But look, if you have a good relationship with your doctor and they're willing to put in there that it is more than likely, then have them write more than likely, right? I mean, it's just that I usually start off higher and ask for, hey, can you write a letter somewhat to this effect that states that, my migraines are more than likely to have manifested during my time in service. And here's some letters from family, whatever. And if they do, great. And if they're like, I don't know, I mean, I can't really say that, then at least as likely as not, were you willing to say that? That's a coin flip. I mean, come on. And then they probably would. So especially, it kind of brings up the whole thing with doctors, right? VA docs historically don't like to help you much in that regard. So like writing Nexus letters and so forth. If you're going to your civilian provider and you're asking them, I usually suggest having a non-combative approach, first of all. And how I kind of preface it or suggest to is, hey, doc, I know you've been seeing me for my migraines, right? Because you're diagnosed. I'm filing some paperwork with the VA so I can get reimbursed for my medical expenses regarding my migraines. Do you mind writing me a little letter that states blah, blah, blah? Look, they're not just doctors. They're also business people. They're there to make money. I mean, they need patients, that type of stuff. So they're a little more, I guess, less apprehensive to help if they kind of feel as though, you're just getting reimbursed for the care you're getting from them. It's not like you're going to, well, now I'm going to go see the VA and I'm never going to see you again. You know what I mean? So it just kind of lowers the kind of the bar a little bit and kind of lets it be a less weird thing. And it's just, I think most people have to try to figure out ways they can kind of approach the subject, right? Instead of, hey, I need you to write me a letter. Okay, yeah, I'll get to it when I get to it, right? Versus, hey, I'm submitting paperwork to the VA. I need a letter so I can get reimbursed for my medical expenses. Kind of like the CMP exam, right? Where, hey, I happen to make some notes that I didn't want to miss anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm going to kind of go through this. It's really important to me. Same type of concept, right? So that's really kind of my thoughts with the with the Nexus aspect and the denial The denial can be difficult, sure, but really you got to try to avoid the denial to begin with, and work on all of that. The good thing about the denial is that they do tell you why they denied you, so you're not usually left in the dark. And if you're still not sure, work with an accredited rep. They can dig through the VA's system, find out why you were denied, and help you decipher a game plan. The big thing here is don't get so frustrated that you throw your hands in the air and say, screw the VA, screw it all, and walk off into the sunset, all to turn around 5 years from now and go, I want to refile for that, because you're going to lose the back pay. You want to preserve the effective date. So you need to address the denial or the disagreement with the VA within the 1 year period, so that way you can preserve that effective date, Clay.
Oh yeah, you had said something I want to hit on is you shouldn't, if you're at denial, you're kind of cutting corners, and at that point, it's already going downhill. I think is filing easy? I think how a veteran approaches how to file a claim dictates or heavily influences if the CMP exam is going to be easy, if the denial is even a thing, okay? And even if you have the evidence and you're denied, which absolutely happens, having the evidence makes that denial easy. Because you read, hey, you don't have any evidence from service. You're like, yes, I do, because I saw it. I submitted it with my claim, higher level review, right? So not only does submitting evidence make it easy for the VA, but it lets the veteran know your evidence. If the VA tells you don't have any medical records and you don't know, you're just like, oh, I guess I don't have any medical records. But if you know that because you submitted it with your claim, I think it makes the process easier. And the opposite applies. If you don't submit your evidence, hang on tight, right? I do want to transition into secondaries, and then we'll kind of end it with our overall opinion on the entire process as a whole. I want to transition into secondaries first. Are secondaries easy or hard? I think it's the same line of denials, but generally speaking, I'm going to say secondaries are the hardest aspect of VA disability as a whole. And it depends, right? Like your radiculopathy, your nerve damage from your sciatic nerve and your lumbar spine, easy. X-ray, boom, done. Nerve damage in your arms from your cervical strain or shoulder conditions, your elbows or wrists, easy. Why? X-ray, boom, done. All right. Lower back rated at 40% causing depression, show me the X-ray. Okay. That's where secondaries get really difficult. I think the hardest secondary, which is so contradictory to YouTube, is, and I love saying this because it makes people mad. This one I like saying is migraine secondary to tinnitus. Everyone says there's evidence supporting that. Yes, well, guess what? There's more evidence saying the opposite. I think people get so tunnel vision finding one article on Google that says, hey, it's connected, and they completely disregard everything else. And then you're going to find yourself being denied because YouTube told you to claim migraine secondary to tinnitus. It's much, much more difficult than that because you can't X-ray it. And so when veterans are submitting secondary claims, it comes in there's two things they need to do. One, get evidence indicating the connection exists in the first place. So, hey, doc, when I get migraines or when my tinnitus acts up, it really aggravates my migraines. If I'm already having a migraine and then my tinnitus acts up, that migraine symptom exacerbates and I'm done for the day. I can't do anything. Have that conversation with your primary care, not the CMP examiner. Talk about it there too. But if you fail to talk about it with your primary care, it means nothing. Self-reports mean absolutely diddly squat until you're at the Board of Appeals, and that's a whole other thing. Okay, Jason, I'm gonna leave it there because I can really go in on what I call stupid secondaries, but leave it there, and then I'm definitely gonna have some comments after this.
So the general idea is just secondaries in general. Like what are thoughts on secondaries? So here's my thoughts on secondaries.
Are they easy or hard?
So easy or hard? Well, it depends, right? So it's, again, this world's so nuanced. So here's the thing, is that secondaries can be hard. And I think that what happens sometimes is people will think that they are easier. And so therefore, even if it is truly a service connected regular condition, they think it's easier to call it a secondary and get it awarded that way versus actually trying to build the nexus. Okay. So your migraines, you might have had them since service, but you got service connected for tinnitus. And then you thought, you know what, it's going to be easier for me to just say it's because of my tinnitus. So therefore I'm going to file as a secondary. Then you get denied, and then that sucks. When meanwhile, you probably should have filed it as a service connected condition and tried to build the nexus, right? There's certain conditions that it makes sense. You might have to push it to the board eventually, but where it makes sense that it's not listed in your service treatment records, that you treated with Motrin, that you got Motrin from a medic or a corpsman, right? And that didn't get annotated anywhere. That as long as you have a current diagnosis and you can get the buddy statements and your own statement and that type of stuff, you could build enough to where the board would probably rule in your favor. The VA may, right? And they should, but they don't always get it right, which is fine. But the point here is that sometimes I think that we as veterans look at our own selves and our own claims process and we go, okay, I have this condition. What's the easiest way for me to get that service connected? Mm-hmm. And sometimes we go the secondary route. So secondaries can be difficult. You made good points there on really trying to make that connection. What I look at is, if it's, I like your X-ray aspect, like your bad back created your pinched nerve, which created this radiculopathy, whatever, right? That's like, it's all connected. It makes sense. You follow the line. When you start moving over into different things like a neurological to an auditory, like your migraines due to tinnitus type of a thing, it's a little harder to draw the line. And especially if you have competing evidence out in the world, that makes it more difficult. I'm a fan of doing this when it comes to secondaries. And I don't know. I think that a lot of us aren't doctors, so we don't even realize that something could be a secondary to something else we have, first of all. So what I suggest people do is take, and this isn't a foolproof plan, it's just a way. It's one of 1,000 different ways to help you navigate your own situation. If you have 7 conditions that you're service connected for, take each one of those and plug those in Google and say secondary conditions in there as well. And some of the attorney sites will pop up, some other sites will pop up, the Mayo Clinic may pop up, whatever, and you will see secondary conditions that are likely to result due to whatever your condition is. And if you have one of those, then explore that as an option. Same with medications. Medications have side effects. If you're taking some sort of quirky medication for this condition and you've been taking it for 10 years, you may have this condition, right? Like if we're taking hands full of Motrin, right, forever, what is it that goes? Your liver? Is it your liver that gets jacked up with Motrin? I can't remember. Or your kidney? Something gets jacked up with Motrin. Your stomach gets jacked up with aspirin, right? So if you're taking a bunch of aspirin to deal with your migraine, well, now you're going to have stomach issues in the future potentially, right? So now you need to be able to look at these medications and the things that they can cause and leverage that as the secondary, right? Look, what I'll never say is if you believe something to be true, don't file for that. No. If you believe something to be true, then try to build your evidence the best you can and file for it, right? I mean, let the VA say no and take it to the board if you feel as though that's appropriate. I'm not going to discourage anybody from ever filing a claim because that's not what I'm here for. But there is sometimes different avenues and that you can go. You could go service connected versus secondary. And the other thing that I really want to leave this on is secondaries are not easier. All that's happening is that you're moving the nexus aspect from time and service nexus to nexus to another condition. So you still need to build that bridge, right? You can't just say, I have this because of that, period. Here you go, VA. VA is going to be like, where's the proof, right? They need something that correlates the two. Talk with your doctor, like you said, have them annotate that in their records. Have them state on a letter, if they're willing to do so, that it's because of this condition that this condition happened, right? Or the medication from this condition caused this condition. So that's kind of what you want to do, in my opinion. So back to you, Clay. I want to hear your final thoughts on that.
Oh yeah, my final thoughts on secondary is hands down evidence. Evidence, evidence, evidence. Not a Mayo Clinic article, which is relevant, but what's more relevant is your evidence. The reason I tell this story and I use it as an example is because it's a true story that this person was not happy with me and they probably still hate me. But they left service. A few years after that, they worked construction. They had fallen off and had some head trauma, and that's when they got diagnosed with migraines. And then they went to try to service connect the cause of migraines direct to service, and then the cause of migraines to tinnitus. And guess what happened? It was denied. Why? Because of competing evidence. And I'm so glad you said that, Jason. So many people just completely forget about competing evidence, which is competing evidence, by the way, is not good, right? You're trying to build service connection. Competing evidence is taking that away. And so this veteran submitted their private records with their claim. The VA has them. You can clearly see head trauma, migraines 3 years after service, right? Not going to be service connected, not going to be secondary to tinnitus. There is an avenue in there. That's causation, right? Causation off the table for that veteran. However, there is an avenue for aggravation. And I think that's where people, especially when you're going from system to system, like neurological to auditory, aggravation is really going to come in clutch. So did your tinnitus cause migraines? No. Does it aggravate the condition and make it worse? Maybe. And remember, maybe it's 50%. That is service connected, at least as likely as not. There's so many examples I can, in nuances I can run in through. But overall, evidence, medical evidence is absolutely critical for secondaries. Absolutely critical. There are a few secondaries I would submit just with the current diagnosis, like your radiculopathy secondary to lumbar spine. Get the diagnosis, submit the claim. And then there are a few secondaries where you might want to consider that private nexus, like a lumbar spine condition causing depression. I'm telling you right now, if you don't get a Hall of Famer C&P examiner, that will be denied. If you don't get a Hall of Famer C&P examiner for vertigo secondary to tinnitus, that will be denied. It really comes down to medical evidence and that C&P examiner. That's really all I have, Jason, unless you want to expand on that. And the last question that I really want to answer is overall the process holistically. So we kind of narrowed down some aspects of the process, but thinking of the process in its entirety, is VA disability claim process easy or hard? What are your thoughts?
Look, it's it's both, right? It's hard for the person that doesn't want to take the time to understand what they need to do, take the time to go to the doctor, take the time to develop their claim, take the time to get their evidence, take the time to read the schedule of ratings, take the time to get a DBQ done, take the time to get a Nexus letter, take the time to ask their doctor to fill out the DBQ, take the time to make the notes, to take to their C&P exam. That's hard. That is going to be a hard road for that person. The person that and I'm going to say it again, the person that treats this like $1 million or multi-million-dollar deal and invests a little bit of time to understand the process and order their records, thumb through them. I mean, look, digging through it even sucks. Life happens, right? And time is going by and you're trying to, what the hell did this person write there? I can't even read what that says, right? So you're like making up like words in between words to try to figure out a sentence in a lot of your records. Trust me, as you're flipping through them. But the person who does that and spends the time it will be worth its weight in gold as far as ease of process, service connection at the right rating, all of that. You're not filing appeal most of the time, right? There's always going to be the exception. The VA doesn't always get it right, but you're way more apt to having a smooth process, a successful claim at the right rating if you spend the time to educate yourself and document it appropriately with the evidence needed for your claim. That's my thought on it, Clay.
Yeah.
What's yours?
So I agree with you, but I think it's both for different reasons. Okay. First, do veterans overcomplicate the process? I think that answer is yes. Okay. I think it's hands down yes. In fact, anytime someone asks me a question about their claim, I usually start with, hey, breathe, don't overcomplicate the process. Okay. Think of the big three. That's it. And so the answer is both, because, my opinion, if a veteran tries to really understand every single nuance about their claim, I think it could be difficult like that, right? If they look at the M21 TAC 1 for flat feet and plantar fasciitis and when are they separated and blah, 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 and other foot conditions and this and that and 38 CFR and all their conditions they can claim, that exacerbates the complexity a lot. Difficult. If a veteran takes accountability and understands hey, here's what I want to claim, here's my evidence from service, here's my current diagnosis, and submits and let it be, I think the process is easy. Okay. Personally, I think the process is easy when the veteran just sticks with that evidence-based claim. Here's what I want to claim. Here's my evidence from service. Here's my current diagnosis. The second you go outside of that and you're talking about private Nexus letters, private DBQs, which do strengthen your claim, whether that's from the VA or your private physician or outside, those do help. But once you kind of go outside the realm of in-service event and that current diagnosis, that's when the claims process gets difficult, at least in my opinion. Okay. But yeah, Jason, I think going back through this whole episode, if we look at filing, it all starts right there. Whatever, you get what you put into it. You take out what you put into it. You get what I'm trying to say. The veterans who take the time to listen to a few YouTube videos, you could probably watch, I'm going to say 5 videos, maybe 4 videos in total of the process and understand what you need to do to be successful, right? Obviously, we're going to have tons of videos on nuance this, nuance that, and that's for very niche situations. But if you look at, here's what I can claim, here's the in-service evidence, here's the current diagnosis, and let it be, the process, it will take some time, okay? It's not going to be overnight, but the VA process does work. People are service connected, right? People who are denied are yelling and screaming about it. That's why that's all we hear. But millions of veterans are service connected. So the process does work. That's really my last thought. Jason, did that spark any thoughts, or we good here?
Yeah, no, I think that you nailed it. The garbage in, garbage out thing. Don't overcomplicate it. Know enough to be dangerous, right? But you don't need to go in and become the SME on it. You need to know what you need to know for you, right? And get what you need to get done. Like we always say, work with an accredited rep. Do your side, get all your stuff together, and take that to an accredited rep who can give it a once over. I'll tell you, most accredited reps are going to go, okay, we have everything we need. We've crossed all our T's and dotted all our I's with the evidence. We should get all of this approved. And then they're going to file it. If they think that you need something else, they're going to tell you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm a huge fan. When it comes to accredited reps, if I had to choose one, it would be your county VSLs. That would be my number one go-to. The old, and I'm not digging on any VSO rep right now, but the old dude that runs the bingo hall, right, at the DAV or at the VFW, they can help, but your county VSOs are really going to be, if I'm recommending a VSO, it's going to be your county level VSO. But that's all we have today, Jason. I want to try this outro, right? if we aren't helping each other, something went wrong. Right?
There you go.
Is that how it goes? There you go.
Yeah,
All right.
that's pretty close. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. There's variations, man. Usually what I say is, I don't even remember now. If we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.
Something
That's
went
usually
wrong.
what I say.
Okay,
That's
sorry.
right. If we don't take care of each other,
something went wrong.
that's right. And it's true. It's true.